everybody, it's Gil here. Welcome back to another Tuesday grilling video. Today we're going to do something a little unique. We're going to smoke a little bit of this in our Pit Boss Pro Series smoker, and we're going to cook it at the end on the Blackstone flat top griddle. You could certainly do this in your oven and a cast iron skillet on your stove. But today we're going to do black bean burgers and try to eat a little bit less red meat from time to time. Black bean burgers usually are mushy. They don't always taste great. The Impossible Burger, if you've had one of those at a restaurant, are phenomenal, but they're expensive, and I wanted to try to make something ourselves at home. And I ran across a really interesting article about somebody trying to replicate the textures of a burger, why we enjoy a burger, right? There's a little bit of char to it. There's rendered fat in the middle of it. There's this alternating texture as opposed to most veggie burgers or black bean burgers, which tend to taste mushy. So let's jump into this. This one's going to be unique. A little bit of prep time, but I think it's going to be a fun one. Interestingly enough, with this one, we're going to use, obviously, black beans. We're going to use a little bit of mayonnaise. We'll need some egg, a little bit of Oaxaca cheese or feta cheese. I'm going to use a little gorgonzola. We want something that's salty and not too melty or creamy because we don't want to add to the mushiness. I'm hoping just a little bit of gorgonzola will do that. We have a couple of oddball ingredients. Cashews. I think that one's going to be the most unique one. Most veggie burgers have breadcrumbs. That's what ultimately its binder is. We'll use a little bit of oil and some onion and pepper, which I have in Ziplocs here because I've used some of them the other day. So let's get this started. The first thing we're actually going to do is we're just going to use a strainer. We're going to strain out our black beans and we're going to put them on a pan. And what we really want to do is we want to dry these out. We want to cook them at about 300 to 350 degrees for about 15 or 20 minutes. And the idea is to keep them from getting mushy. We want them to have texture, a little bit drier, so that when we pulse them in a food processor a little bit later, they add to that overall texture that we'll get in the fully cooked burger at the end. Now here's where it does get interesting. We're going to use our Pit Boss Pro Series smoker to actually smoke these beans at about 300 degrees. I went ahead and drained my beans into a colander. I went ahead and rinsed them a little bit. You want to get some of the starchiness off of them. You don't have to get it all off of there, but just a little bit of it. And then we're just going to go ahead and spread these out so they're nice and even on this pan. And we'll get these put, we're going to do them in the smoker so they get a nice smoky flavor, but you could certainly do this in your oven as well. 350 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. So while those beans are out on the smoker actually drying out, we're now going to start preparing some of our other ingredients. Now, I'm only doing about a half recipe on this. So I'm using one 15-ounce can of beans. I'm going to use a half of poblano or hatch, or in my case, I'm using a green bell pepper, and about a half of a medium onion. So we're just going to go ahead and chop these finely, and it's important we get them fine. What we don't want are large, soft onions or peppers in this as we bite into it. You'll notice I'm cutting these in fairly small pieces, and I'm going to cook them on about medium to medium high heat. I don't want to get them really browned like you might normally put on a burger. I really want them just softened and sauteed lightly. And this is all part of the texture we want in this burger. It's certainly going to add some flavor, so the flavor profile's got to be right. But this is a lot about texture. We want that alternating soft and more dense texture of a real burger. So I've got about a tablespoon of oil in the pan, just enough to go ahead and get these sauteed nicely. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit, but you can certainly hear the way that sounds. Sounds great. All right, while we are smoking our beans out on the grill, we have our onions and peppers sweating a little bit. We're going to add just a little bit less than about a half a cup of cashews. Yeah, I know that seems a little weird, right? But cashews are a soft nut. They have a fat to them. They're going to add a little bit of that texture that we're hoping to get. So we're going to put that in a food processor, and we're just going to pulse it a few times. We don't want it to be just a powder, and we don't want big chunks of them. But think about when you bite into a burger and there's those little tiny minimal pieces of grizzle and fat and textures that we want. We want things about that size. So that's what we're ultimately shooting for with this. After my onions and peppers have been sauteing for about 5 or 6 minutes, I'm just going to go ahead and put a little garlic in there, saute it for another minute or so, just one clove crushed up. I'm going to go ahead and saute it for about another minute. We're going to take them out and put them in a bowl. Now that they're done sauteing, we're just going to go ahead and put these into a little bowl and set them aside. Just going to put our ground up cashews right in the same bowl. We're really just setting this aside, so it's okay that they mix together here. It's all going to be part of our mixture that we're going to make for the ground meat. All right, these were out in the smoker for about 20 minutes or so. And you can kind of see what happens. They split open. They're definitely drier. If you taste one, I have an interesting texture to them. They still taste just like a black bean, but they have the a little bit more of a crunchy texture, but a more solid texture. It's good. All right, so these have cooled down now for about 5 minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and put them in the food processor. And what we want to do is, just like we did with the cashews, we want to pulse them. We don't want to turn this to a paste. I would say we want them to be, I don't know, about maybe 1/3 the size of what the whole beans were, so not too much. So we're going to add in the beans in here. We're also going to add a little bit of our cheese, and in our case we're using gorgonzola. We don't want much, maybe just a couple of tablespoons is all we really want of the cheese. I'm just going to break this up a little bit. And you definitely don't want to use a cheese that's real creamy. You would never use cheddar, American, or provolone, or anything like that. Like Oaxaca, or feta, or gorgonzola, but that'd be it in small quantities. We're now going to just pour our bean mixture right in here. And we just want to add it to a bowl that we're going to use for mixing. So to this, we're going to add about 1 tablespoon of mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is going to give it that fatty consistency, much like a burger would when the fat renders in the middle of it. All right, we add in our tablespoon of mayonnaise or so. And then we want to just pour in our onion and cashew mixture. And to this, we want to add, again, I mentioned before, I'm doing a half recipe here. So I want almost the whole egg. And to this, we now want to add in about the same amount of panko breadcrumbs as we did cashews. So in our case, it was, let's say, between 1/4 and a 1/2 cup. So I'm just going to scoop that in there. We're going to mix this up, and we're going to see what the texture is like. But ideally, we're just going to kind of blend this all together. And in a moment, I'm going to get in there with my hands, because I think that's the right way to do this. I'm just going to mix it up. We don't want to smash this together. We're not trying to make something that's not going to bind well. Let's see how this works. If we were to pat this together, not bad. I think we would benefit from a little bit more breadcrumbs here. All right, and you want to do it so that it forms into a nice shape, right? That's ideally what we want to do, and you can see here that's going to work pretty well. So we now are at a place where we can make our patties, and we want to make these, let's just say, at about 4 ounces or so. The nice thing about a bean burger, unlike a meat burger, is it's not going to shrink when we put it in the pan and cook it. There's no fat to render down. So I think whatever size we make them, we just want them to be very close to the size of our actual bun. Let's be a little bit bigger. I'm just going to go ahead and roll it out, and then I want to sort of shape it a little bit. About the size of a burger, what we ultimately want. I'm going to do this over my bowl. I think it comes off of it. It's okay. Pack it together nice and tight, because we don't want this to fall apart when we end up putting it onto the pan or the griddle. Hey, right over here. Hey, do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Give the video a like and a thumbs up. Thanks a bunch, man. Appreciate it. All right, and then we have our patty right there. All right, those look good. Give me just a second. I'll wash my hands. I'll show you what these look like. We'll season them up, and then we'll get them cooked up. All right, we just want to season these up a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. That's all we're going to do. And I'm going to do that on both sides. All right, you can see what these look like, and you'll notice I just put them right on the same pan that I dried the beans on. They have a good formation. They're not too strong, but they're not brittle. And if you're going to cook them on a regular grill, like a gas grill, you want to brush a little olive oil on them. I'll show you what we'll do. It actually stopped raining, so we're going to do one on the Blackstone, one on the grill. All right, so I'm going to mix up a little mayonnaise to go ahead and garnish this with. Because it's not meat, one of the things you can do that's really pretty good is, if you've never used liquid smoke, I have about 2 teaspoons of mayonnaise. I'm going to put 1 drop of liquid smoke in it, mix it up. It'll be a great mayonnaise to put on top of these burgers. Let's see if I can get this on film. There's dolphins right out here. I love it when they come right out in the canal like this. It's just over there. And what they're doing is they're chasing fish along the wall. There he is. See him? It was kind of cool. I actually just saw a dolphin right out here in the canal behind us. It was pretty neat. Okay, so we've got the Blackstone on. I have 2 burners on about medium heat on the far left. The other 2 are off. And I'm doing that so I can regulate and leverage the temperature I want based on where I put them on here. So let's go ahead and just see what we're at. We'll open this up. So yeah, we're at 500 degrees where that's on. And then right over here, we're at about 350, 375. So that's where we're gonna wanna cook. What we're gonna do is, if you were doing this on a cast iron skillet in the house or on a flat top, you want to just put a tablespoon or so of oil on here. You want to get it good and hot. And because there's no fat inside of these, it's really important that we get oil on the pan, or if we're doing it on the grill, you'll notice we're going to use this little brush and we're going to brush the top of them before we put them down. So I'm just going to spread this oil around a little bit, make sure we have a good coating of it. We're going to go ahead and get our burger. We're going to sit it right down on here. Now it's going to be important when we put this on that we don't flip it over. We want to cook it for about 4 minutes on one side. You want it to get a good sear. If you try to flip these often, they will fall apart. They're a little bit more brittle. So we're going to go ahead and leave that on there for a good 4 to 5 minutes. You will notice I'm going to take a little bit of the oil that's rolled around here and I'm going to slide it back over by the burger. If we were doing this in a cast iron skillet, you would swirl the skillet around a little bit. All right, so it's been about 4.5 minutes. I'm just going to take a look here and see how we look on the bottom side. Looks good. We want to gently flip this over. You'll notice I'm going to put a little bit more oil down here. Might have cooked that one just a tad too long, but that's all right. It'll still be good. We only want to go about 2 minutes on this side. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bun. I'm just going to slide it through some of this oil. Just going to put it right here and get that toasted. I'm also going to scoot my burger over here so it can cook a little slower on this side. These have been on here about another 2 minutes or so. I'm now going to go ahead and start to assemble this. I toasted a couple of buns, just put some oil down on the top of the griddle, laid them cut side down, about 30 seconds, just enough to get them a little bit toasted and flavored. I'm then going to go ahead and use some of that smoky mayonnaise we made. I'm just going to add a little bit of lettuce, and I'm going to put some cheese on it and melt it as well. Let me go ahead and get this thing assembled for us. I'm just going to go ahead and get some of this nice mayo right on here. Spread it around. So as I mentioned before, you can certainly do it on a regular grill too. You could do it on a gas grill, you could do it on a smoker, a pellet grill. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by actually oiling the top of one of these burgers. And I'm going to add just a little bit of oil. You can do this with just canola oil. I happen to be using olive oil. And we want to brush the top of it. And that's going to be real important to keep it from sticking to the grates on a grill. Keep in mind, because we have those open grates, this thing could fall apart. So doing that really goes a long way to help in there. We're just going to go ahead and place this oil side down right on our grill. Just like we cooked it on the Blackstone or you would on a cast iron pan, we're going to go ahead and after about 4 minutes, we're going to add a little bit of oil to the top of this and brush it around and then flip the burger over. Just like I mentioned before, it's going to be really important that you don't flip these often before they're at least seared on the bottom. This helps hold them together. So you want to resist the temptation to flip it until about 4 minutes in. So after a full 4 minutes, you can start to see, I flipped it over and you can see the sear that we have right on the top. You want to cook it about another 2.5 minutes before taking it off the stove and putting it up on the bun. Well, I'm always bummed to find out that the batteries went out in my wireless mic just before I'm finishing up my camera. So forgive the voiceover as I went ahead and tasted this, and I'll share with you, this really was good. The texture of it, you know, I'm not going to say it's just like a burger, but it's close. It has this this sort of meaty or tough texture to it. I don't mean tough in a negative way. I mean tough as in it doesn't taste like a mushy black bean. It tastes more like a burger. The cashews and the varied grind on the actual black beans gives it a lot of that same sort of texture and meaty feel in your mouth. Adding to that smoky mayo that we made and the lettuce on top of the toasted bun really made these things delicious. I was pretty impressed with it. I hope you guys go ahead and try this. I'll put a link to the descriptions down below on the recipe. It really is not difficult. We have since made these several more times, but this was a long time in the making. We tested and tested different combinations of these different ingredients before we got the right texture. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video, and we will see you next Tuesday for another video. And as you can see, I liked it enough that I went ahead and had another bite, and I probably should put this thing down. Otherwise, I won't end up bringing them in the house for the rest of the family. But these things certainly were good. You can see here I was munching away. I ate half of it just out here taste testing it. So into the house, and we'll see you all again next Tuesday. Bye now. Safe grilling.